Well, here to discuss further the unstable situation in Libya is journalist and author Rory O'Keeffe. Thank you very much indeed, Rory, for coming in. Let's just talk first of all about that nettlesome migrant problem, because while the number of migrants arriving on the Greek islands in April fell by 90%, it's not that story for those coming from Libya, with thousands more rescued off the coast of Italy. So that's not getting better, is it?
No, absolutely not. There are a couple of reasons for that. The first is that this is the time of year that the journeys from the South Mediterranean to Europe tend to increase in any case as the weather improves. But secondly, of course, the EU's deal with Turkey to prevent people crossing to the Greek islands does mean that there are now a large number of people who are seeking alternative routes to the European Union. And unfortunately, Libya is one of those routes. That's unfortunate because it's a far longer sea crossing and therefore much more dangerous.
Now, on Tuesday, Libya's UN-backed government of national accord announced the creation of a new military force to protect government buildings, border posts, vital installations. I mean, there's also been the question of how they've been providing security for themselves up to this point. But what is the significance of that announcement?
Well, it's difficult to see it as anything other than a rather perplexing announcement, in that the Government of National Accord is only the most recently formed of now three effectively illegitimate and powerless governments in Libya. Not only that, the Government of National Accord primarily exists because the international community hopes that it will invite bombing campaigns to Libya to target IS in the country. And finally, it is very difficult to see where they're going to recruit a parliamentary presidential guard on the basis that there hasn't really been a legitimate or legal Libyan military.
Well, absolutely. How are you going to train them? Where are they going to be housed?
Absolutely.
I mean, what about the other government in Tobruk?
Well, the government in Tobruk has found itself for the first time in a very difficult position. It has always seen itself as being a legitimate government. It claims that the election of June 2014 gave it legitimacy. There was only a 16% turnout for that election because the Libyan civil war had already begun. The HOR now, which is that government, the House of Representatives, has effectively been dropped by the international community. There is still a requirement for the HOR to vote to accept the new Government of National Accord, which has still not been made. So
clearly the political landscape in Libya continues to be extremely complex, and in the mix of this uncertainty, is it true to say that IS, Islamic State, have grown in Libya?
It's true to say that they've grown, but it is easy, I think, from a Western perspective, where we have some experience of IS and very little knowledge about what else is going on in Libya, to overplay the threat of IS in Libya. IS in Libya remains the smallest of the forces fighting in Libya. It arrived into the Libyan civil war late. Its defeat, whilst desirable, absolutely, is very unlikely to bring the Libyan civil war to an end. IS is a big part player at this point. That doesn't mean that it should be ignored, of course. We do need to be very, very careful about the way in which IS is growing and the way in which IS is acting in Libya, and any opposition to IS, I think, is a good thing. As I say, however, it won't bring an end to the Libyan civil war, and to some extent IS relies on the Libyan civil war to retain its activity in Libya.
What's the state of play with that civil war now?
Well, effectively, it hasn't moved on a great deal from where it was when it began at the end of May 2014. There are two large illegal militias, one led by General Khalifa Haftar under the name Operation Dignity, which claims to support the House of Representatives but is not governed by it, and the other, Libya Fajr, based in the west around Tripoli, where the General National Congress, the other so-called government in Libya, currently sits. On top of that, in Benghazi, you have a rather strong Al-Qaeda associated force, Ansar al-Sharia, and then of course there is IS in Libya. So it's a four-way civil war, and at this moment in time it's very difficult to see how any one of those sides could win.
Rory, thanks very much indeed. Rory O'Keeffe, the journalist and author.